I'm Amy DeVroon and welcome to Year of the Selfie podcast. 2020 has been a mad year thus far, a year where we've really had to take a look at ourselves. As a self-help nut, this hasn't been hugely out of the ordinary for me, but what has been so unusual is watching an entire creative industry grind to a halt in front of my very eyes. The link between creativity and mental health has always fascinated me, so I wanted to go deeper. In a world where we so often equate success with fame, it can be easy to forget the reason behind it all. Creativity. This unique, inexplicable gift. The thing we do where we lose all sense of time. The thing that lifts our hearts even in the darkest of moments. The thing that many of us feel we were put on this earth to do. So every week I'm going to talk to my guests about just that. Their creativity. Their highs and lows, and where they find their creativity when it feels like there's nowhere to put it. On today's podcast, we have none other than actress and self-development coach, Holly Matthews. She has some story to tell, so buckle up, guys. You're gonna love her. So Holly Matthews, welcome to Year of the Selfie podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Not
so excited.
I know, so am I. So basically, for anyone who is listening in, I met you years ago in London, like years ago.
Yeah.
I feel like it was about 10 years ago, for sure.
Definitely 10 years.
You had no children at that point anyway.
No, I didn't, no.
So, yeah, and it's so funny because I've actually just been like at a distance always watching your career.
And same as well. It's so funny, isn't it? You just do, because you've got people on social media, so you just like half an eye, and every now and then think, oh yeah, when I met that person and I was doing that thing, and it's so
and then
funny.
you see like how everyone's life changes, and then I always kind of had a good vibe with you, so I always have kept up, and I feel like a similar view on life as well, so I've always enjoyed watching what you've been doing. So you're kind of, and what's interesting as well for me about what you've been doing is that you've started off as we'll be talking around in circles because there's so much to get into with your story.
There's a lot.
There's a lot.
Stories for days.
You started as kind of like a child actor. You were in Byker Grove for years and then gigging on TV and stuff. And kind of in the last few years, more leaning towards self-development coaching and speaker and that kind of jazz. Yeah. So like, God, and then your story in itself, what I find kind of like, I suppose, I hate saying inspiring because it's such a dull, dud word that everybody uses, and it's such a like, but your story is inspiring, I think, because you've had a lot of shit happen, but you've kind of owned it, but it hasn't become your story. It's just part of your story, and it's part of your...
Yeah. And that's so important to me as well, because, you know, the whole point for me with self-development is that I don't play victim, and I think people should take responsibility for their lives and the energy they put out into the world and everything else. So for me, I don't want the sad stuff to be me. It is part of the journey. It is part of why I do things. It's part of why I respond in certain ways and why I care. It's all of those things, but it's like that, you know, rich tapestry of who you are, rather than this bad thing happened and it was really, really crap. And then that's me now. This is me now. You know, it's like that feeling. And I do see so many people that just define themselves by that. And I really, really don't want to. And I know that the hard thing is that everything that happens. So for viewers, listeners, my husband died of brain cancer. And there was obviously a lead up to that, in that he was diagnosed with brain cancer and we went through all of the treatment and everything else. But it played out very heavily in the media and the press. So there was always eyes on. In fact, there's always been, in my life, there's always been eyes on in some form. And so, but having that play out was very different, because it was a very vulnerable space to be in. But I have to talk about, because it's often the reason people come to me for self-development, and also because if you don't know that about me, and you look at my Instagram or my social media and you Google if you Google my name, you'll find it out. But if you look at some sides, the acting side, the glamorous side, the singing, the acting, whatever else, it would be very hard for somebody to take advice or to be coached by me, because it would be like, well, look at you, like, how is your, you know, like, and I don't, you know, I know my pros and cons, but I know that if I were me looking at me and seeing only the good bits, then I'd go, who's she to tell me anything? You know, she,
exactly.
You know, wearing her makeup and you know, just who is she to tell me anything? You would. And so for me, talking about actually the reality, the ins and outs of what I've been through, it allows people to go, okay, I can hear what she's saying more now, because it strips away the fun stuff and the I guess, I mean, we know, being in the acting industry, it ain't glamorous.
No.
But you know, the facade of glamour is there.
Is definitely, for sure.
So glamorous. Behind the scenes, can we just say the majority of acting on TV is just eating biscuits and sitting around in the green room? That's the TV world. A lot of waiting. It's not so glamorous. But so that's why I talk about this stuff. But you're right. I don't want it to be all that I am, and I don't think we have to be one thing in our lives.
No, for sure. And actually, that definitely just brings me surely onto a TED talk you did, which I think I will link up to, because I think everybody should watch it. And it is about that kind of accepting life's unfairness can completely set you free, and not letting it rule you, and kind of as well that it's all relative. So this is like, and if not you, then who? Like that kind of thing of like, you know, I remember my mum and, well, I don't remember my mum and dad's first baby, they lost their first baby, and I remember my mum said her and my dad were always saying, well, why not us? Do you know what I mean? Why not us? Like, why do you think you're so special that it shouldn't happen to you, and it should happen to so-and-so down the road?
Well, that was my husband's attitude completely. Like when he was diagnosed with brain cancer, he was diagnosed with grade 4 brain cancer from the start. So it was always bad. We knew it was bad. We knew it was rare. We knew it was normally found in children. It was normally found at the back of the head. His was at the front. They didn't have a clue. It was a needle in a haystack when you didn't even know where the haystack was. And so, but his attitude, I mean, he was autistic, so he was very black and white on life. He was classed as what would have been classed at the time as Asperger's. So he just saw life as black and white. I'm here, I'm alive, or I'm dead. That's it. Simply that. And I won't, you know, I don't see the grey area. I don't need your stories about your person who died of cancer or how they dealt with treatment. And his attitude was absolutely, why not me? Like, if anyone's going to get it, I'm probably the best to deal with it. Like that was always his attitude. And I honestly think that because it was so bad, we actually had him for 3.5 years after diagnosis. And it's a hard thing for people to understand, but for the majority of the time, I didn't have a sick man. Like it's very hard. And I'm not saying, obviously there were times when it was very difficult. He had seizures and brain surgeries and everything else in between. But even, you know, there were times when he'd have brain surgery, come home, 3 days later, he'd be wallpapering the walls. You don't imagine that when you think of having brain surgery. You just think that's not going to be the case. But it wasn't, you know, he'd come back from chemotherapy sometimes and he was having intense chemotherapy. It was like the top end of what you need to like have. It's brain cancer. And he'd come home and he'd want to go and play football. And I honestly think that was because he didn't read any of the stuff that he was supposed to have. He didn't know the symptoms. He didn't listen to anybody else's story about how he should behave. And he used to say, they tell me I've got brain cancer. I can't fucking feel it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, and so because he had that attitude, he didn't let it define him. And actually that was always, as a couple, we always lived our life on our own terms, always. And we're both entrepreneurs. We both worked for ourselves. We spent nearly 10 years together, just pottering around, doing our own thing. And so for some people, when they hear me speak now and be so candid about our journey and my story, I think it's sometimes hard for them to understand that we lived a quite black and white understanding of life and death. I don't believe in God, so I don't believe there's another life. I just believe that this is it, and I'm comfortable with that. Like, you know, energy is infinite. His energy lives on in this space, in this ethos forever, and his energy lives on in his children, in his ideas, and what he brought to the table. And for me, that's enough. For me, in life, that's enough. For me, that's, you know, when I die, that's it for me. I don't believe I'm going to another special life. And whatever makes you comfortable, like we don't know the answers.
And I think when people, when people do think of like, not religious, or that it's kind of quite like
dour, sad,
it's dour and awful. But when you say like his energy lives on in the children, his energy lives on in the things that he did and the things he did, that to me gives me tingles, because I'm like, that's actually so.
Well,
special.
Brooke, my oldest, she had the best description. So with the girls, I'm very open with my children. Like they've had to go through a lot. I can't bullshit them. I have to be straight with them.
Can I just get what age they were when he was diagnosed, just for reference for like people listening?
Yeah, so when he was diagnosed, Texas, who's my youngest, she was just about to turn 1, I think. She was a baby.
Yeah.
So Brooke was like 3. She
Yeah.
was just turning 3. That sounds about right. It's 2 years between them. So it was about that. So when he died, they were 4 and 6.
Yeah.
And so we actually had, interestingly, my grandma died the year before. It's easier to explain that she's an old lady. People have their time, and people die. I always say to the girls, people die when they're sick, when they have an accident, and when they're old. That's what happens. And so for my daughters now, that's actually quite a comforting thing, because when they get worried about me, I say, look, I'm not sick, I'm not old from being in an accident, okay, I'm here. Yeah. But when I asked, I said, what do you think happens? Because they know I don't believe in God, but I always say, but this person believes in this God, this person believes in this person, I give them options. I don't say this, and I never say my way is the only way. I say, we don't know the answer, and whatever makes you feel good, that's what you believe. If you believe there's a heaven, if you believe that there's people living in the clouds, that works for you. If you believe that we come back as something else, that's up to you. It's your choice. But when I asked Brooke when my grandma died, we had this conversation before Ross's death, which was nice because we'd had these conversations. And I said, what do you think happens? And she just said, well, I just think that there isn't a heaven, but when people die, they just she said, I can't remember, she said it was so grown up. She said, I just believe that they just live on in the, like, all the love that they had in them just gets shared out with everybody else that was left behind, and their love lives on in them. And I was like, oh my god,
God, I'm not able for that right now.
I know, and I was just like, I'm down with that. I'm down with that. That works for me too. It's
Do you know what I mean?
Kids have got to find their own path, and my girls will sometimes say they believe in a heaven, but they say, but I don't believe in God, I just think it's like a hangout. I'm like, cool, sounds fun, like whatever works for you. And I was very cautious when my husband, when we knew he was going to die, I actually made, doing what we do, I made a video for everybody that was going to come into contact with the girls, because I was really conscious, do not put your stories onto those kids. They will make their own journey, they will have their own path. And so I made a video it was for the teachers, it was every single person that was in contact with them. And in that video I explained obviously that the bare bones of what was going on and what the girls would know, what they had heard. And I also put in there, do not tell those girls your version of what happens after somebody dies. Do not tell them their dad's going to look down on them in heaven. It just, that's, people, and I know people always say it with the absolute, nicest of intentions.
Of course.
But bear in mind, my husband was an absolute staunch atheist.
Yeah.
When people say to me, he's watching down on you, I'm like, I hope not.
Don't.
I'm doing all sorts wrong. He'd be fuming at the way I'm loading that dishwasher.
Oh my god. The simple things.
The simple things. But I just, so for the girls, I was just and I still am. And I always allow my children to explore. That's the most important thing. Let them explore. Let them work out their own way in life. They're not me Mark II. They're their own people.
Yeah, because I think as well as, and I'm learning this even as parents, you have this sort of notion of how you'll do, even if you have great parents, which I do, so hi mom and dad, but I mean, you do kind of have this thing of oh well, I'll do it this way and that's how I'll do it. And I think it's so, because they're not you. So there's no way you can imitate what your parents did or didn't do. You have to just kind of watch them and let them be who they are. So
they're you and your partner, whoever you made the baby with. They're two people mixed together, and you don't know what you're going to get when you mix it all up like that. And I'm very lucky. My girls are great. They're nice people, and they're so different in their little characters, bearing in mind they're together constantly, especially right now as we're in lockdown. But they are my oldest daughter has a lot of similar traits to my husband, and she's very strong-willed, but she's also very soft-hearted, and she's very, very inquisitive and creative. And my youngest is the most independent little girl in the world.
Amazing.
We call her Tough Tex. Like, she is the toughest little kid, just bounces back up, gets back on with it. Like, she'll go away for a while and she'll come back and she's learned to sew or something. She's like, oh, okay, that's cool. She's just one of those little persevering children.
Yeah.
It's great.
And did I read, sorry, because it's making me think of, so Brooke is the eldest, and I was just saying before he came on, she went viral a couple of years ago, and it was talking to Theresa May, I think, about homelessness and what basically why is she not doing anything about the homeless?
Absolutely. So interestingly, it goes with what we've been saying there, and that I've always had, and so did my husband as well, I had open conversations with our girls, and I get them to explore life. And we were sat in an area in the Midlands in the UK called Leamington Spa. I don't know if you know of it, but it's a very affluent area. And we were sat there in the middle of the day. My husband was doing something, so we had to kill time. We were sat there eating cake, playing on an iPad in the middle of the day. And because it's very affluent, there's a lot of homeless people around. And I was just suddenly so aware of my own privilege and the fact that my child is grown up in a, I didn't grow up with money, but I never considered that I didn't have money. Nobody had money. So I didn't we had food on the table and clothes on our back, and I never considered it. But my girls, I've worked hard and they have a nice life, and I'm very aware of that privilege. I want to teach them that not everybody has that. And my daughter was asking questions about why people were homeless on the street, and we were just talking about it. Bear in mind, we had 2 hours to kill, so the conversation went everywhere. And so she said, well, why can't the Queen buy the houses for people? She thought the Queen was in charge. And so I said, well, actually, it's not the Queen that's in charge at the moment, it's Theresa May who's in charge. And I was explaining the voting system and also we went deep. She's only 5, but I'm like, these are the people, these are the part. I was explaining the process of it. And this conversation went away. She said, well, I'm really cross, Mum. She said, initially, I want to write a letter to Theresa May. And I said, okay. But then bear in mind, she'd seen me on telly, or she saw me on screen. She would see me filming things. So to her, it's not weird. She said, I'm going to make her a video. And I was like, yeah, cool. We'll do it at some point. And then being a parent, I was like, she asked a few times after that, probably for about another month, I'm going to do that video. And I was like, yeah, okay, yeah, sure. And then honestly, it ended up being a bedtime bribe where she wouldn't go to sleep. And I went, look, I tell you what, you get yourself to sleep. We'll do that video to Theresa May. Yeah. If I had planned that out, she wouldn't have had pen all over her hands, and she wouldn't have been a scruffy mess. That
it's always the way.
Neat and lovely, and like, look how amazing.
Lovely backdrop, and
it wasn't bad. She was in her bedroom, and she made me do it twice. Because she wanted to get it right, and I put it on my Facebook page, and it had I had a few thousand on my page, but it wasn't anything, isn't a massive page. It got picked up. I thought it would get a bit of a laugh, to be honest. I wasn't trying to get it to. I was telling her I was trying to get it to Theresa May, but it wasn't some kind of political propaganda. It was just like. It's if you've watched the video, she's just saying she's cross about homelessness. It's hardly politically motivated. No, it is political because everything's political, but it's not party leaning. It just happened to be that the Conservatives were in power. But so we put it out. Then it went on to some political satire Facebook, and the guy messaged me and he was like, "This is going to go viral." And I was like, "What does that really mean?" Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And suddenly, within about 2 days, I was taking calls off Russia Today and the Ellen DeGeneres show, and I was like, "Oh my God." Whoa. It was do you know what? Actually, bearing in mind that I've been on TV and I've been in that industry since I was a kid, I've never not known it. It's the first time I've ever felt uncomfortable about something. It was like the genie was out the bottle and I couldn't stop it. I've never had it. So it was, other than when my husband died and there was paparazzi and press at the funeral, that was a weird space as well. Weird. But before that was the first sort of it's out in the world. And it was, my dad actually worked in Kazakhstan at the time, and he was seeing it in Kazakhstan and it being translated into Kazakh, and it was insane. But the weird thing was, Brooke didn't say any of that. She's 5, she's not on the internet on her own. And I got so much backlash for that. It's it was ridiculous. I just got, obviously there was normal humans who were that's sweet and good on her, for being a good human. And then I would just get, you are indoctrinating your child. I had the most abhorrent, I remember one, interestingly, it was someone from Ireland. And he messaged, I know.
What's their name?
Right, I'm going to get him. He messaged me on YouTube, and his initial message, because I had responded to the backlash. At that time it went out, Brooke, my husband had just had his second brain surgery. So we were really in amongst it at that time, and it was a very, very tender time. And Brooke had been told about it this time because they were old enough to understand the second brain surgery. And this guy messaged, and I had put on this video. This was just my answer to some of the trolls. And I'd said, look, I don't think it's very nice to call a 5-year-old girl, I won't repeat, but the worst swear words that you can think of, a precocious little...
Yeah.
I don't think that's very nice. And so I was responding, and in it I mentioned that, Brooke's actually a wonderful girl and she's going through a lot herself right now. And this guy messaged saying, boo-hoo, so your husband's got brain cancer. Bring out the violins, right?
Oh. My God.
And I was like, bear in mind, I'm so not that person.
No, that's why it's
I deal with those kind of people very well, because I deal with it with just like humor and like, are you okay, hon? Like, do you want me to call someone? Like,
why are you so sad in yourself?
Should we chat? So I was kind of doing that, and I think at the time, I think he was the guy with like a cat profile, and I'm like, look, I'm not going to argue with a cat. Like, this is silly. Like, I'm a fully grown woman. You're a cat, and so I was kind of going back and forth, and because I'm actually not an idiot, he kind of got shook out of his troll mentality to human being mentality, and suddenly started to have a conversation. And then it kind of transpired that he was like, actually clearly not an idiot. He then emailed me and told me his full story and said he was a policeman in Ireland and he'd had a really bad year with his health, and this had been his outlet. It was just his way of letting off some steam.
God.
I know. And then asked me to coach him.
Stop. Oh my God.
And I was like, I'm a forgiving person, but I ain't that big. I'm a big person.
I have to coach you after you've just given me a load of abuse. Now I have to coach you now.
That's just such a stark reminder, though, that people who are mean to other people have their own stuff going on and they're projecting. But I just got so much of that during that time that it really, I'm very protective. When Brooke went on and did the Dawn French show, Little Big Shots, which actually came back at a very strange time. She'd been asked to do the American one originally. That kind of nearly came, it didn't come off, but that was the initial conversations. Then just after Ross died, they had been in touch and said, look, this is still going on. Would Brooke like to audition for the one in the UK? And I said, no, she's not auditioning. If you want to see her, you can have a chat with her. She ain't doing nothing. No, absolutely not. And I knew that. Also,
it's not a role. Like, do you know what I mean? The thing, she was being herself on camera, talking about something. So, So
I just was like, do you know what? No. And I went to Brooke and I said, look, it's up to you if you want to do it. Nothing to do with me. But if you do say yes, you're doing it. You have to make that decision. If you've said yes to somebody, you don't get to back out afterwards. That's the only thing. Yeah. So she wanted to do it and she was excited. But it was just a very weird time that she did it. It was literally the month after Ross died. When she filmed it, but actually in many ways that made it really extra special because it was something joyful and it was something for her to put her mind into. So it's actually very good. But it is funny, and it doesn't surprise me or anybody else around us that Brooke's talent, bearing in mind I'm her mum and Ross was her dad, was being opinionated. It really didn't shock any. They were like, that makes sense.
That kind of makes sense. And would you find, because you were, I guess, when did you start in Byker Grove, I guess? Was that like, what age were you then?
I was 11.
So you were 11.
I was 11, yeah.
So knowing that industry, would you be twice as protective over her?
Yeah.
I know then it wasn't as heavy.
It wasn't as heavy.
Internet kind of thing, and
But then it was less protected. So it was a weird, a lot of my friends who were in Byker with me are heavily having therapy now. So it wasn't, we weren't protected in the same way at all. As much as everyone at Byker was wonderful, it was a different time. And, a lot of things, you just weren't protected. Like we used to have people coming on set that really shouldn't have been on set, like that would come and like hang around by the set, and used to get weird the word, they used to screen the fan letters, but I used to get some weird stuff sent, being a kids TV show. It was odd, and we weren't always protected, but we did not have the level of fame that people have now.
Yeah.
Which is quite frankly quite terrifying. And I worry with I also work with a company called Channel Mum, and Channel Mum do mum content, and they pay me as one of their vloggers. And a lot of the family vloggers on there really heavily have their children on. And I'm not judging any of them, because everyone does their own thing, and what works for you works for you. But I am very conscious of, my kids can be on my channel, but at the age they're at now, I don't want them to have their own YouTube channel. And maybe I'll change my mind on that. But I had this conversation with my Brooke and Texas are likely to somehow go into that industry. I can't stop it no matter what.
Yeah.
Not that I want to, because I can't pretend it hasn't given me an amazing life, because it has. And I love what I do, and it's creative. And we play around the house, and we make, we act around the house. And so they are obviously going to do that. And Brooke particularly has really shown an interest. But she keeps saying she wants to be a quadruple threat.
Oh, wow. So, not even triple.
No, I mean, as you know, in the industry, we say our triple threat: dance, act, and sing. But she wants to add in being an author and an illustrator as well.
Oh my God.
So she's going to add it in. So I always say to them, you can be anything you want, and you don't have to be one thing. That's the great thing about it. You can be many things. Don't let anybody tell you you've got to just do one thing for the rest of your life. But because of Brooke's interest, we had a conversation the day where she wanted a YouTube channel. And I said, not yet. And I said, look, you have to understand, darling, that you are at an age now where things are all fun and you want to put it out there. But in a few years, you're going to be in secondary school, and you might not want to see that stuff on the internet, and you might feel a bit sick. And I said, there's nothing wrong with you feeling silly or anything about things, and you grow and you learn. And I certainly bring up my children to be tough enough to deal with that. But equally, I'm just very conscious that while they're in that stage where they're learning who they are, do they want that on screen? When I was on screen, it was a character.
Yeah.
I was playing a character, and yes, I did TV shows where I would be seen as me, just me being interviewed. And I didn't, I was quite shy really in those kind of early stages of interviews. So I'm just quite protective. It's not that I wouldn't want them to go into it, because I think it would be great for them, and it's a great life, and, I would be able to guide them. But I'm just conscious that I just don't want everything that they are to be there, because I've learned that lesson as well being online. You want to give enough so people can understand who you are, and you share. And my level of sharing is probably way above and beyond what many people would share, but I also have a really important part of me that's secret and mine, and it doesn't have to be out there. That's my space, and not everything that I am is on the internet, although yes, I do share, but it's really important. So I think when it comes to kids, I'm just conscious that I don't want to tell all their secrets, or I don't want to, it's just not.
And actually, how do you find that how do you, or has it taken time to find that balance? Because I know, say for example, when Ross was in hospice care, or had kind of come to the we can do no more point, end of life plan or whatever. I remember you were kind of putting up videos and stuff, but it weirdly never felt too much or too invasive. And that's the really hard line to manage. Is it because you sort of set an intention behind it, where you're kind of going like, I'm doing this for this reason, and if it's in keeping with that reason, that's cool? Or, because I
think so. I think there was definitely, because I actually, when we were starting to know that this could be it, and then obviously we had the definite answer that it was quite rapidly changing. The very initial stages, I actually had quite a few bits of work to do. And I was doing this weird thing of trying to fake it on camera, and just feeling like this weird, awful, inauthentic disconnect. And I hated it. And then I thought, because I was holding it back thinking, do I need to keep this, it's not just my story, it's everybody around's story as well. And so I felt really weird about it. But then what I realized, and I've really thought about this, particularly because of that circumstance, but for me, and I guess it comes from, if we're looking at the psychology behind it, growing up on television in my formative years, when I was shaped as a person, I was in front of a camera. And when I went to school, to a normal school where, I was the kid on the telly, and it weren't that easy at school always. When I went on set, that was my safe space, where I was around creative people like me, where I felt like I was in my flow, my zone. And so that always feels my safe space in front of a camera. So actually, what I realized was, I just need to speak about it. I'll feel better. And my thoughts were always, I need to get it out of my head, and this is my way of talking about it, because I'm not a person that can, it's not that I can't easily talk to people. I just don't ever feel like people can really change it for me. I take the personal responsibility for where I'm at. And so often, even things like counseling type talking therapies don't do anything for me, because I'm just perpetuating this. It doesn't do anything. I'm talking to you. I'm reading your
rehashing it, reliving it, bringing that energy the whole time. This
doesn't do anything. I'm not saying that it works for some people, but not for me. And so I just felt I'm just going to talk it out. And my thought process behind it was, one, the girls will want to know what happened at some point, and I won't remember it. Two, I won't remember this, and I feel like maybe there's, I don't know if this is like a creative mind, but like, I guess it's a positive mindset as well, but just always trying to find whether there would be a lesson or a learning from this in the future. And, even part of you's going, maybe you could create this into and this might sound so bizarre to other people, but that you would put it in a documentary that you talk about, that it would help somebody else somehow. I don't know. But there was a level of that. And then there was also the feeling of, and I found this when I was in the hospice, I started to Google like people who'd had their partners die of cancer, and I wanted to find something to grasp on, something positive.
Yeah.
And it was so hard to find anything but like pity, and this is it, and life is over, and the pain is endless. I found so much of that, and I found it quite difficult to find people that were really positive. In fact, actually, there was a lady, and a name totally escapes me, but it was an Irish lady who I did find, who had spoken about her husband dying a lot, and she'd gone on to do a bit of self-development as well. She had been in the industry before, so she was famous in Ireland. I'll have to find a name for you, but she I saw her, and hers was probably one of the only things that I was like, okay, I can get on board with the way you're talking. But while I was sat there, I just thought, if I can't find this online, then I just need to be it. Because somebody else is watching, somebody else is doing what I'm doing, somebody else is sat there with their husband dying next to them and going, I need to see something, I need to see hope. And and every single, and this is not an exaggeration, every day I will get a message on my Facebook, my Instagram, my YouTube, or somewhere on an email sent to me of somebody saying, you've helped me through this time. My husband's dying, your videos have been invaluable. I'm so glad I was able to see them and find you. And I always message people back, because I think if someone's taken the time out, which is challenging at times, but if someone's taken, especially in those moments, you need someone to go, I get it. And you can ask me all the weird questions that you don't want to ask your friends and family. Because this is when I was lying there next to Ross, and we were there, I remember now, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, about 3 weeks. And I slept next to him every night. And one of the things with me was that feeling of, I don't want to be blindsided. I want to know when this is going to happen. Like, I need to know, like, is there and I was like Googling the stages of death. And in fact, I think I mentioned that in my TED Talk, I was Googling the stages of death. How does it happen? And the nurses in there were incredible. I mean, they do know. They know to a very accurate amount when somebody's going to die due to their breathing and their heart rate and stuff. And actually, they were great for me. But I just felt like if I talk about this, there's someone else that has that question. There's somebody else that has those feelings of, that when you're watching somebody die that you love, and it's prolonged, there's that feeling of like absolute fear that grips you, that you don't want them to go. But then on the other side, you're going, enough. It's enough. It's just but no one wants to talk about that, because that makes you feel guilty that perhaps you're saying, I want them to go, but you kind of do, but you don't want the person that you had to go, but that person there is dying, and it's such a weird space. So I just felt like if I talk about this, and I know that there would have been some people that found it distasteful, I don't care, like it's not for them, and turn away. It's not for everybody. But when you're going through something, I'd have watched that. I'd have wanted to know. I'd have watched somebody else talking about it in a way that felt real. And I honestly haven't seen any of those videos, and I've actually got more on my computer that I didn't upload. And I don't know if I'll even ever watch them, but I don't. But in fact, I tell you, I watched one that was on my computer because I didn't know what it was. And I don't remember a single thing I said in it. Like, I didn't remember any of it. So it just made me go, wow, like it's weird how our brains protect us and shelve things in a space when we don't need to look at that anymore. So I just didn't remember it. So I've no idea what's on that stuff, to be honest, now.
That's amazing. But it's finding someone who looks like you, because you don't look, I've heard you say that in interviews as well, you don't look like the typical widow. You know what I mean? No. Oh my God, you're young, beautiful woman, it looks like everything's going for you. So it doesn't
look like, I don't have the veil and
yeah. And we're so not used to it. So I'd say for anybody, and sources and a positive experience, because not that that's a happy thing, but I think those experiences, there can be moments of beauty or something in them, and and taking the good from them. So I think and people do want to seek that out sometimes, and I don't.
They want that hope, don't they? We want to see hope that it's there's good that could, and I can genuinely say that, and I always say this to people when I work with them, but it's not about trying to get rid of and reject the thing that's happened. Yeah. If something bad has happened, a trauma, a loss, a grief, whatever else, it's almost like I think somebody else described this to me. It's like, imagine this is your ball of grief or trauma. Your job isn't to try and break that down. It is what it is. It's part of the journey and the story. Your job is to build your life around that so full and so good that doesn't seem as big. And that's what we do in this house. We think, right, we've got to think, of course we cry about my husband, or of course we get upset or frustrated and angry and all of those things. And we've gone through all of those things sometimes in one day. And as much as people don't want to hear it, time is a healer, and time you do move forward, and certain things will trigger you and make you feel sad about things. Like for me, I always find if I find something with his handwriting on, that throws me, because it's just so real. It's like that's their role. This is so real.
Yeah.
It's just a weird thing, but whatever it is, the rest of my life is really good. Yeah. And I have a great life, and I have a great life because of what happened as well. That's the weird thing. It's not in spite of it. A lot of the good stuff that has happened in my life has been a catalyst from that. It's come from the bad stuff and my desire to seek out the good around it and to help other people. Because for me, my love of self-development, and that's always been there in the industry. You need it to not lose your mind. Totally. And I just found you just do. And I, I can tell when people don't do it, they're neurotic and crazy. That's why actors and actresses and singers and everything are really uninsurable, because we're all a little bit crazy. Because and if we don't keep on top of that, if we don't keep on top of all of those highs and lows of the industry, then we do. So I've always loved it. But for me, my passion, it's not enough for me to be free. So my driver is freedom always. I want to live free. I want to do what I want. I want to dress how I want. I won't be told. I want to just live my life. But it's not enough for it just to be me. When I see people and I'm like, you've got all of the opportunities there, even with the pain, even with the sadness. Have you cry, sit in your pants, watching Netflix and eating chocolate for a bit, and then get back up, and you'll be all right. And so that's what drives me every day, and that's what drives my self-development stuff. And that's intensified since Ross's death, because I see, and I have people come to my workshops and my events and stuff who have been in the same situation, and they're not finding it so easy to move forward. And they're stuck in that space. And I find it so hard to see that. I've got to try and find ways to help them to unlock it for themselves. I don't know what that means. And I do question it. Think, what makes you, why do you care?
Because there seems to have been a turn, because was there a last job, acting gig that you did? Is acting always kind of something that's just parked there for you? You might kind of come back to it. It's just around. So was there a last acting gig or something? Because I know that there was there were you doing Casualty or Holby City or something? And was that the last kind of big one that you did? And then was there a flick of the switch? Was that around the time that Ross got sick, actually, or was it all kind of snowballing? And then
I think having kids, you start to already question the industry, because it doesn't necessarily fit with a lifestyle of being, I can hear my children.
Yeah, exactly. Perfect
I'm on the
timing.
I'm on the call. So when you have kids, I'd already found that having children was a balancing act, and, trying to work and go to London and Manchester and auditions and all that had become quite challenging. And then I did Casualty. So I'd filmed Casualty, and it was quite an intense episode as well. I was playing a lady who'd been raped, and it was actually working with the director, Graham Harper, who had directed me as a kid in Byker Grove, which was a nice sort of turnaround. So I'd done that, and then weirdly, I can't watch that now, because when I was filming that, the tears that I had on screen were real, because Ross was really struggling in the background. We couldn't work out what was up with him. Because he had brain cancer, there was the tumor was pushing on parts of his brain that were creating depression, and he'd actually really, really struggled the night before I was filming, and he obviously had we both were there, so Brooke and Tex, and he'd felt like suicidally ill, like he was like that bad. So the tears when I'm crying on screen were like real. So I actually find that quite hard episode to watch now, or a few episodes, but it was, and so I'd done that, I'd gone out on screen, and there was a real buzz around the episode, probably because the tears were real. It helps. And there was quite a lot, but my agent was like, right, we got you in for an audition for this. There was a film, playing a footballer's wife. I booked that, and it had only been that week, and I came back and Ross just had these intense headaches. And we actually thought the feelings that he was feeling was because of the autism. Because when he was diagnosed quite late in life. People just didn't know about it when we were young. It wasn't something people tested for. And the lady who had diagnosed him had said, I was pregnant. Was I pregnant? Yeah, when he was diagnosed. And she said, it's important. She said, it's good that you've got this diagnosis, because you might find that the fast-paced change of pregnancy and then children might be quite challenging. So we kind of assumed that his initial symptoms of the brain tumor were because he was finding it hard and he was having basically autistic meltdowns. So he started to have headaches and stuff. And then so when we went to hospital, eventually got to hospital, found out what it was. It's so weird. I can remember it so clearly. Bear in mind, when you're an actor, as you know, it's very, very one-track minded. You become so focused on it. There's nothing else. And for men, until you have children, maybe you are fixated. This is where I'm at. This is all I am. This is who I am. There's nothing else. You almost limit yourself in many ways, because you become fixated and you feel, if I don't grasp onto it, someone's going to come in and get the part. And it feels very like that. And so I'd always been like that from all those years, 11 years old. And I remember after Ross had been diagnosed, and I'd come home and I was just on my own. And I remember it so clearly, because it was such a weird feeling that I came into the house, that I looked around the room, everything felt very alien. And I just had this clarity of understanding of I remember thinking, I've got to ring my agent. I've got to ring her, and I've got to tell her to drop that film and what's happening. And I just thought to myself, and I'm not interested.
And was that, that was obviously the first time that actually you felt like that.
I never felt it.
Yeah. For an actor, it's such a weird feeling to
I just couldn't, I never had imagined that would have happened, that I just suddenly did. It was like, I couldn't understand why I'd ever wanted that. Why did that matter? Because it was like dropping down another level of self-development, where I just went, I don't need anything like that. None of that matters, because when it comes down to it, all of the stuff, all of the titles, the status, the whatever else we put on ourselves as human beings, when it comes down to it, what we want is love and human connection, and that's it. That's who we are. We're really we're a social species, and it just felt that nothing mattered. Nothing in the house, the stuff. I was looking around the house, and it was things that we'd moaned about the week before. I was just like, why do we care? It doesn't matter. But it was just so clear. And I think going forward, it was actually quite, in some ways, it was nice to let myself off the hook, having been so intense for so many years with acting, to go, there's a reason why I'm not doing this, and I'm not playing the game. I'm not doing the schmoozing. I'm not doing the networking. I don't do it anymore. I don't want to go to auditions. I don't want to do that. And it's interesting now, because I do, especially that there's been a level of press interest and stuff with the self-development stuff that I've been doing, that people have come to me to want to do some more acting stuff. Right now, it's just not feasible. I'm a single mom. It's just not going to happen. I'm not going to and the kids really need me around. But two, I just don't have, it sounds awful, but right now, if somebody says to me, audition, I'm like, I don't fancy it. I don't want to, I don't
Is
want
there
to
a part of you that goes, just give, if you're going to give it to me, just give it to me, don't make me audition for it? Like,
yeah,
are you that
I'm not
loose about it? Yeah.
Yeah. Like I'm kind of like, I know I can act, and I don't mean that in a big-headed way, and I'm not saying there's certain things you need to see somebody do and stuff, but I know I can act. If I look right, I look right. If I don't, I don't. Obviously, there's an element, working with other actors and stuff and seeing how you gel with them and that, but I just don't want to play the game. I just can't imagine myself now going for an audition at Hollyoaks and being like, I mean, I don't even know if it's still on, isn't it? I so don't watch the telly. No idea. Trying to pull out something from the 90s or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Is Grange Hill still on? I'm like,
oh, Grange Hill.
I'm like, just, I just can't imagine, like, because, we know what that industry is like. It can be really very, very, some, not the actors and the people in it are very lovely, and there's a lot of fantastic people in it, but there's also this weird hierarchy of like agents and actors and cast and directors that I just don't give a shit about now. I'm not playing your game. Like, I am a fully grown-ass woman who's been through some stuff. I can hold my own. I've run my own shit. I don't need, I just don't, and we don't live in this world now anyway. We don't live in a world where it was when I first started. You had to have an agent, you went to a casting director, please sir, can I have a job? And then you got the job. These days we've got YouTube and everything else. We don't need this. It doesn't need to be this, it's loosened everything up. We can create our own stuff if we want.
Yeah, and it doesn't need to be this linear thing where it's like you do the 1, 2, and that's really, I think that's really detrimental as well for actors, and it makes us a bit less creative because you hand all of your power over and you go, if I do A, B, and C, then I get the thing. And then, like even in your TED Talk, you're going, what if you don't get the thing? Then what? Then what? You just sit there and be a victim and go like, and there is, not that everyone's like this, but there can be that victim mentality that seeps into actors a lot, or creatives, where they go, well, I didn't get the thing. And then you just sit in that and you're like, but you take your power back and do something, make something happen.
Well,
or
one of the things I always say to young actors, I'm like, don't be a skint actor, have something else on the burn, because there's nothing more depressing and uncreative than somebody who's just scratting about trying to find money. I know I've done all the kind of stuff. I've dressed as a yogurt pot, and I've worked in pubs, and I've done everything else. I've done it all. It's not that I haven't got my hands dirty in the same way, but it's not a creative space. Whereas if you've got something, anything, it doesn't matter what it is, whether you're a hairdresser or you do voiceover stuff outside of the visual acting or whatever else it is, but have your own thing, because then you're in control. And the one thing you don't have often as a creative is a lot of control of that outside stuff. And there is ways that you can have it, especially now. And I'm glad it's loosened up, because I could tell you some horror stories about, agents and people in that I've met in the industry. Like, just people just needed taken down a peg or two, that just didn't recognize that, you know what? The actors are the ones that are bringing that to the table. Like, I'm not, everyone that plays their role. And I've never, ever been one of those actors that was like, and probably because I've been in the industry a long time, but everyone has their important role. But I can't stand when you have a director or you have a cast director or an agent who thinks they are better than or above the actor. It is a collective thing. It's just, I've had it all. I had one of the ones I can remember, and I went looking for an agent when I was more of an adult, and I had one, and a really known agent, and she actually offered me to be my agent, but I went to a meeting with her. And bearing in mind, I've got a Geordie accent, and my Geordie accent was stronger then, because it was 10 years ago. And I said to her, because I'm always conscious as an actor, and maybe I know you do accents as well, so I'm always conscious going into a meeting that people get what I always say is like an excitement about the Geordie accent when I go in, because like, oh, a Geordie. And I'm like,
a selling point.
But then I know they're going to get that recording, go back after and go, the character's not Geordie. Because not Geordie. She's general northern, isn't she? She's northwest. Like that was always the thing. So when I was at this meeting, I said, I can do other accents, so it doesn't pigeonhole me. I can do an RP English accent. And she went, go on then. And made me do it, and that's fine. So I was like, okay, no. So I started talking. She said, just do it for now. Started talking in an RP posh English accent, and it went into the 10-minute mark of me still talking like this, and I'm starting to feel like uncomfortable. Like, am I keeping this going? I started to phase it out. Took them out of it, and she went, are you still doing it or not? And
Oh
in
my
my
God.
head then, I just thought, you're a wanker and I won't be.
Yeah.
There's not a chance. How, I mean, certainly an actor agent relationship has to be a collaborative thing.
Yeah.
You don't get money if I don't get money. We got to work together here.
And I think a lot of actors, so particularly younger ones just starting in the industry, you know, like fresh out of drama school, are terrified of their agent, terrified of calling them, terrified of chasing them for work. So it can't, and I now realize, but I've only gotten that way now that I'm older, that like, if I can't have a conversation with my agent, I'm just not interested then, because I'm like, well, I'm bringing work to the table and, you know, you're getting me the audition, but if I can get in the door, then it's mutually beneficial. So if I can't have a conversation with you about that, why are we even doing this? But
I wonder why. I mean, I wonder why. I don't know why it's been like that for so long, but and I don't think it's changed massively, but it's just a weird old fashioned sort of space. I used to have an agent that was actually, I'd worked in America for a long time. And she went back out. She came back to the UK and she went back out because she was so sick of for directors and people that she was trying to get actors through the door saying, what drama school did she go to? She's like, what is this? Like, she's like, they all want to know. In America, she's like, they love the rags to riches story of she was just the waitress and then I got her in and she was fantastic. And like, they just love that. Whereas in the UK, we're like, no, darling, which drama school did she go? She needs to
and a lot of pressure on specific drama schools. And like, the one I went to wasn't accredited, and coming from Ireland, I didn't know that it wasn't accredited.
Right.
We had all the same tutors that were in the RAD and LAMDA and all that, but it just so happened that this wasn't accredited or whatever. And oh God, I remember the grief and it's only now with certain things on my CV that people can move past that. But oh my God, it's a thing. Like,
it's such a thing. It's like a very old-fashioned way of looking at things, but it isn't. It's not a wonder that actors do have all of these insecurities and neuroses because we and I think I mean, I often get asked now, particularly when I'm doing like magazine interviews and stuff, so why have you're an actor and now you do self-development and you're a life coach as such, and like I always struggle to say life coach, even though it's the most obvious form of name of what I do. But I just think it sounds like I'm trying to tell someone how to live their life. Like I always say self-development coach because I'm not telling you how to live your life. I'm just trying to give you some tools to see. Yes. Things
and I think life coach can have it's gotten a weird kind of label over or something. Yeah. Because sometimes
it's kind of, it's this sort of toxic positivity, which I'm not into at all. Like, just be happy, everything's positive, fine. That's not, like, I'm going to put out there to your people that are watching this. Like, I don't believe in that. Sometimes, some days are shit. Some days you're going to cry. Some days you're just not going to feel right. And absolutely all of the emotions of anger, frustration, sadness, all of those things are important. They're important things to have. How can you know happiness and excitement if you don't know the other side of that? And I can't stand this, like, well, just be happy, just find something positive. That's not, there's an element of being grateful, and all of those things are really, really important tools, but not at the detriment of actually feeling things.
It's like blocking out.
It's all, I'm like some weird Stepford wife where you're like, everything's fine, I'm just fine. I mean, I don't get that. So I think sometimes life coaching kind of gets attached with that kind of possibly even quite American, like woo woo, whooping and hollering and stuff that I guess for a more, British, English, Irish, Scottish, Welsh ear, it just doesn't quite sit right for us. We're like, meh.
Yeah, it just doesn't feel so realistic. It feels a little bit, like unbelievable. Yeah. And I feel like I remember this, was your mum in a similar field or something?
My mum's a trained life coach. Yeah.
Okay. So do you feel like it filtered down? That was kind of always.
No, because she didn't do that. When my mum worked in a bank and my dad was a welder. So it certainly wasn't a conversation we ever had at home. And she only really did that when I was probably in my 20s. I was early 20s. So it's weird. And I didn't really understand. She didn't ever go into it in a great deal. And it was probably more in a more sort of corporate setting. So I didn't really understand what she did other than, I mean, I'd always read self-development books from being really young. And I did self-development from being a kid. No one talked about that. And I look back and like, where did that come from? And I honestly think it was it started with when I was on TV and doing Byker Grove, I had really bad body dysmorphia. I could have listed all the surgeries I needed to have, all the things that were wrong with me. You know, I thought I would leave the house and people would just like faint at how ugly I was and they wouldn't be able to look. It was just awful. I mean, I think it, you know, it comes from if you're on set every day and somebody's correcting your face every day.
Yeah.
It's going to affect you a little bit when someone's
and would you be watching yourself back on TV as well? Like, so you'd be kind of very aware of what you were,
And I, you know, and it's your awkward stage of being a teenager. Yeah. It was just the worst stage ever. I was spots and frizzy hair and gappy teeth and no boobs. It's just like, I mean, nothing much has changed. It's still quite similar. It's really very similar. It's just with more like bronzer. That's it. A little bit more bronzer and concealer, but I'm cool with it now. But when I was growing up, I got to that stage where honestly I can't explain it any more than I was tired of my own bullshit and I felt rubbish. I was sick of calling myself names, and I got to that point of being like, I just need to not feel like this every day. Like I need to feel like I don't have to have a full face of makeup, tan, nails, everything else before I can leave the house. It's exhausting. And I decided, and I'm just making it up. I mean, now I actually know it has a name, but at the time I was making it up, and I decided I would just start trying to find a better way to talk about myself in my head. And I was essentially doing affirmations, but in the correct way. So I didn't, I didn't try and force myself to stand naked in front of a mirror when I was feeling that bad and go, I am beautiful.
Yeah.
Because
just feels like you're lying at that point.
Yeah, because my subconscious would have just been like kicking off, like, no, you're not. I always imagine, I was trying to explain this the other day, like I'm such a visual, like flipping creative. But when I'm talking about subconscious and conscious, so our conscious mind is the one that's good as gold. So in my head, like the conscious mind is like some angel, just like, I'm going to start that diet. I'm going to do that thing. Whereas like your conscious, it's like some like grumpy little smoking, like, no, you're not. You're crazy. Like your subconscious is where all the real, like who's really running the show. And so my subconscious, if I'd went, I am beautiful at that stage of my life, would have went, absolutely not. Sit down. No, you're not. So I realized that actually, and this is a real good tool for people watching and listening, affirmations, you don't need to jump them, you need to start small. So I was calling myself all the names, like the worst stuff. So I decided I would just say, I'm okay. And right now that feels like, as I am now at 35, that feels like a really sad affirmation. Like, but I could just about get that out without my subconscious running amok. I'm okay. And I started from I'm okay. Eventually I got to, I look nice sometimes. And, and when I first said that, and then he threw up in my mouth, like I was like, that's awful. No, I don't. I wanted to avoid, like, go against it. But working on that slowly like that, eventually I got to the stage where I'm cool with me and I'm okay with me. And I'm like, and now I like myself and I'm pretty. And now I'm completely comfortable with that. And that includes all my flaws that I might perceive. It doesn't matter that they're there. But I think it's really important. And when I was growing up, I did a lot of stuff like that. Like I would meditate, and I just don't know. I just knew
where it came from.
No, it was a very organic thing. It was me going, I need to not feel like this. And I actually think that holds me in good stead now in the way that I coach people, in the way that I work. Because although I've got some qualifications in this stuff, I've never asked a coach for their qualifications because I need them to get something out of me. And it's never, I feel like anyone who coaches me needs to have gone through some shit. Like I need to know you went through some stuff and you worked your life out in a good way. And so actually the fact that I really have done this for, like, this is an organic thing for me that then ended up being a job that I do, but it came from a place of necessity for me. And then, being able to find it for other people. But my mum, officially, she is trained as a life coach, but she doesn't do it a great deal. She has the odd client now and then, and sometimes brings them to my workshops as well. I'm like, that's so weird. That's brilliant. It's so weird.
But it's so interesting how you found that for yourself. I always feel like I was reading these mad books and things quite early on. And I think it is a creative mind sometimes needs it. Because otherwise we can go down the really negative route, and there's it's no surprise there's a link between creativity and mental health, because I think you're I remember someone even saying to me, actually a life coach saying to me, she was like, if you're creative, she's like, you're like a sponge, you're picking everything up, and that's why you're good at your job. But she said, but you need to be able to learn how to also create a boundary for that in your real in your real life as well.
That's it.
So.
But definitely, there's so many actors that I know have gone into the similar sort of world because they were doing it anyway, and it felt like a natural progression, natural next step. But you're right, you know, I class myself as an empath, and I think all actors tend to be sensitive people. In fact, a lot of actors, and you may well, I consider myself a confident introvert.
Yeah, I think that's
I'm confident, but I'm an introvert. Like, people never assume that because they think she loves being around people. I'm like, no. I'll be honest, lockdown life, not that big a deal.
Yeah, I've heard so many artists be like, yeah, that wasn't a huge step.
It's not a huge jump. I was in this office already, just typing away and filming stuff like a loner. I know, I actually saw at the very beginning of this lockdown life, I found it really interesting, the dynamic between, like, in real world times, the extroverts are the ones that are confident and leading the way. And it's the complete opposite when it's come to, you need to stay in, you're not going to see anybody, you're not going to have your outside influences and distractions. The introverts are like, okay, we're indoors now, are we? That's cool.
Yeah, can totally deal with it.
Totally deal with it. So actually, it's a really interesting dynamic. But I can't even remember where I was going with this one. But what were we talking about introvert, extrovert? I don't know. I've lost my train of thought.
Oh my God, now I've lost my train of thought. But yeah, just, in terms of, I guess, how the link between the creative and the mental creative. Health. So I think that was what it was. So I was saying actors are introverts often. Yeah. The actors can be, you know, we're sensitive introverts. So actually, you know, all our emotions are right on the surface. Yeah. But you're right, if we're not careful, we can take on other people's stuff, because that's kind of what we do as actors. You know, we take on other people's, we pretend to be them, we walk in their shoes for a bit. So if we aren't careful, we soak up people's energy like sponges, and then feel really quite drained and bogged down. And even when I first started coaching, I didn't understand that was going to become an issue for me, that I would just be like, anyone can come in. I will help. Here's all my energy. You may
have mine. And I'm like absolutely depleted. And that's actually my first few clients, I was attracting those kind of energy vampire clients. And now I really don't. Because I've just went, no, I want clients who are going to, I work with a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of female entrepreneurs, because they have that feeling of, yes, they might have to work through some stuff, but they're ready to do the work to pull themselves through. Yeah, which is what I like working with largely. And there's other avenues for people that I don't want to work with one-on-one. They can do my courses online, they can do things where it's a little bit less hands-on for me. But as a boundary, I have to be so protected. You know, even things like social media, I have a cut off with social media, 10 o'clock maximum if I go on social media, because people can message me some really deep stuff and I can't let that go. If somebody's messaging me, I'm on the edge, like, I can't, that's me, then I'm up, because I can't leave that.
Be up all night with that kind of thing. So you would need to.
And people get quite, you have to be really careful, because people can become quite clingy when it comes to that stuff. And, you know, you already get that a bit when it comes to acting, but when it comes to coaching, people can become very needy with you. So I have to make sure, sometimes I have a VA who deals with my stuff first, so that I can just have a barrier before it gets to me, because otherwise you'll get people that almost think you're like their mum. And I'm like, no, like, I'm not going to tell you, I'm not going to make the decisions for you. Yeah. You're going to, that's, you know, so
because it should be empowering them to be able to make those decisions, you know.
It's not empowering. If they're addicted to me, that's not, I mean, all right, might massage my ego, but it's not like, that's not my job to do that. So I really can't stand that kind of mentality. But it's just interesting, that link between the creative and the coaching and stuff. I always look at it like this: as an actor, my job was to learn about somebody's brain, the character's brain, why they do things, what makes them tick, and then walk around in their shoes and pretend to be them. It's the same if I'm working with a client. I learn about their brain, I learn about why they do things, what their triggers are. I don't pretend to be them. I then help them to find solutions for themselves. But it's so linked. Actors have all the capabilities of doing self-development type stuff. So it's very interlinked, but so important that creatives do it to protect themselves.
Definitely. Oh, which kind of leads me on to my final question to wrap it up, because I'm having such a nice chat. But what does creativity mean to you? And it doesn't have to be a short answer. I always say it can be as winding as you like.
Well, creativity for me, mine is, I think my creativity always stems around storytelling in some description, that whether it's, visual, or whether it's, I like to draw, I like to sketch and things, and me and the girls, we're always making crafts, and you might see on my Instagram, we do like themed days, pirate days.
Themed days look
it's
amazing.
Just the best.
Yeah.
I mean, I bet you can't wait, because as an actor, like we just, as a mom actor, once your little one is old enough to do that, like it's the funnest thing, and everyone asks, they're like, is that for the kids? And I'm like, no, it's my own thing. I wanted a pirate. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, there have been times when I've got the face paints out, because I'm like, I want face paint on today. And the kids like, yeah, cool. I mean, they go with it. But yeah, for me, it's about storytelling. It's about how can we, I don't know, like there's this feeling of everything, like stories are so important to my journey. Like everybody has their own story, and it fascinates me why you and I are having this conversation, how we get to this point in our lives, how lives cross over. And so all of the, whether it's writing an Instagram post, or it's writing a book, or it's drawing or sketching or singing, everything comes from it, a way for a human to tell their story or to tell somebody else's story. And so that feels like what creativity is for me. But for me, it's essential in my life. Like I can't imagine not having some kind of creative outlet. I don't know what people do. What do people do?
Yeah. I know. I always wonder the same. What do they do? How do they survive? It's survival.
It is. Like, it feels like when you are being creative, it feels to me like you're finding out answers, like you're unpicking what's gone on. Like, whether it's a bad thing or a good thing, that you're reliving it in some way, that you get to work through it. That, my way of like de-stressing, some people like, mindful coloring and things. I'm just going to put out there, mindful coloring drives me nuts. Why do
can't
I made some mindful coloring with really big spaces, because I don't understand why mindful coloring has to be so small.
Tiny spaces. I can't do it. It's too small.
That's not fun. That's not fun at all. That's irritating. That's not mindful. So anyway, that's just my bugbear about mindful colouring books. I might make my own. They're going to be big spaces for you to have a free space in it.
Yes, I can get on board with that.
Yeah, but I like to sketch, and that's my way of zoning out. I'm not amazing, but I enjoy the focus of that, of copying something. And when I'm having my days when I feel like I'm overwhelmed in some way, that's part of my self-care. I think, right now, you need to stop. You're going to be no use to nobody here. So just stop the work. The works are going to be crap. So just leave it out. And I need to find a way to zone out. And that's one of, being creative and doing that. And people laugh at me. You won't laugh at me because you're a creative. But I will like sit and just have songs on YouTube, and I'll be just sat having my own little karaoke, just singing to myself, recording myself a bit. Like, that's just my favorite like outlet of like, just it's the best. I love finding ways to be creative.
It just takes you out, takes you somewhere else. It
does. I mean, my daughter's downstairs now. My youngest is in fact, she's just she was told she had to make something in nature, so she's gone out there and she's making a fairy garden. And she just came up to me and I went, you need a fairy. So just before this, we jumped on here, I'm getting some sticks. I went, get some string, right? So I'm making this little tiny fairy out of sticks and a leaf for a head and wings. And my daughter Texas went to me, oh, Mum, and she was deadly. See, it wasn't even taking the mic. She went, oh, Mum, is that how you had toys in the olden days?
Oh my God. Oh no.
No, Tex. No, that's
You're the same age, Holly. This is terrifying.
I had to go into Texas's school to talk about toys from the olden days.
Oh, Jesus Christ. No.
I know. And I was like, but it was great because I had the kids round and they were like, how old are you? And I was like, I think I was 33 when I went in, 33. And they were like, that. And I was like, I'm very old. I'm 33. And they were like, my mom's 45. And I was like, nice.
You're like, yes.
I'm like, look, the toys that you have, like My Little Pony, and because all the toys have come back.
I know, we invented them.
But they were ours. We didn't have the tech, we didn't have any of the iPads, but do you have hula hoops? Do you have a football? Yeah, we had and they're like, oh yeah. Like, my kids think I'm from like when we had VE day, they were asking me what the war was like.
Oh my God, come on. Oh my God. Seriously.
I don't really like them. I mean, I'm glad.
You're just glad to get the hour out. The hour to yourself, to be honest. I know that feeling. Sure, I've sent mine off, God knows where. No, but it was, it's funny. It's funny even just what you were saying about the storytelling and how our story, speaking of being old and storytelling, has kind of led us to this point where we've kind of come into contact again. Like it's mad.
Nice. It's mad.
It's amazing.
It's crazy. It's good amazing. Though. It's lovely. And I actually, one of the things I love about people who are in the industry is that we're quite self-aware, and so you can have like really deep conversations, because I don't do very well with just small talk. I want to talk to you about your fears and your dreams and your desires and what scares you, and what was your worst moment, what was your best moment. Like, that's the kind of conversations you have. And when you speak to another actor, that you go there very quickly. Quickly. And I'm actually, and that's good, because I'm shite at small talk. Like, I'm the most awkward small talker ever. And I end up telling people like the most intimate details. Yeah, I know. My mum is always going to be, Amy, you don't need to tell them everything. And I'm like, but I do. What else? Well, how will they understand me and understand what triggers me? And how, exactly. I mean, actors have a very bizarre life. And even when I talk to my industry friends, and I'm like, so I was in Epping Forest and I was pretending to be an otter, and they're like, what do you mean? Like, what? Sorry, what? Why were you pretending to be an otter in a forest? And I'm like, I know, right? It's not its terrain. It annoyed me too. And like, no, that's not what's weird about that. That's not what's weird. Why were you an otter? But that's, actors, we just kind of grow up in that world, and it just doesn't seem that weird. So it is very lovely that when I do meet people who I connect with in some way, you just find that they cross over, and it's so lovely to see you doing so well, and being a mum and everything now. I know. As well.
Being a mum is kind of crazy.
That means we're grown-ups.
I know, which is also terrifying, because I do not feel grown up at all. But thank you so much, Holly. Such a pleasure. I think people are just going to get so much out of this. Like, your story is incredible, and there are no words for it really, because you're incredible. You just how you own it and how you just go with it. And I hate the word inspiration, but you are an inspiration because how you deal with everything. And I like to deal with everything like that. Like, just go, like, let's not dwell in this shit. Let's just keep going and seeing what we can make out of it. And
that's it. Just go towards the next good thing. That's all you can do.
Yes.
Go towards that. That's it.
Oh, what a good note down. Go towards the next good thing. So everyone go towards the next good thing. Thank you so much, Holly Matthews. You're welcome. Star. Thank you.
Thank you.
So there you have it. Holly Matthews. Lads, I don't have the words. What an incredible woman. I just loved that chat. I love all the chats, but oh my God, I just think she's so incredible and so inspiring. And I know I say I hate that word because it's so overused, but I think, in terms of owning your story but not letting it define you, you couldn't get a finer example, could you? What I love about Holly is that, as we say in the podcast, I did meet her years ago in London, kind of by chance, and how this moment has kind of brought us back together. And she even said before the podcast, I'm an open book, or book, as the Geordies say. But she said she's an open book, and ask me anything, and let's have a real chat. And she is the real deal. She is genuine, and she makes things happen for herself, but in a very aligned, pure and truthful way. And I think we can all learn a lot from her. So thank you, Holly, and I wish you the very best. And I can't wait until our stories intertwine again. If you like the podcast, don't be afraid to share it, like or subscribe. We're on Spotify, YouTube and Apple Podcasts. Until then, have a great day, guys.